Greg, are you with us as well?
I am.
Perfect. Okay. Uh, it is 12 o'clock. We've got a very full hour, so we will get started on the dot today. Usually we'd wait a minute or two, but we've got you jam packed. So I hope you've got your pencils and paper ready. And if not, we'll be sending out a recording of this after. So be sure to watch it as frequently as you wish. Today we'll be talking about accounts receivable in NCR Counterpoint. My name is Matt Collins. I'm the CTO at Rapid.
And I am Greg Stubblefield. I am also on the team as an education consultant.
Great. Uh, Thank you all for joining us on this webinar. We've had significant interest in this topic, so we plan to cover the basics as well as dive into some of the advanced features of AR. As we navigate through the screens, we will have already have these loaded and ready to go to move through the presentation. We will discuss what the screen name is so you can find it in your own system. To access these menu options, you can utilize the lookup icon in the top of your Counterpoint window. If you do not have an option on your menu that you would like to utilize, you can ring our help desk and request this be added to your menu, or also send in an email to support@rapidpos.com and we can assist you there. Generally, users with administrative or manager level permissions will have all of these menu options present already. The screen resolution for this webinar has been adjusted to make the screens a bit larger and easier to see. So when we're in touchscreen, some of the buttons might look a little squished or display a bit funky, but that's so you have a good clean view of what we're presenting, and that wouldn't be the same as what you'd see on your register or your back office computer. If what we're going to do is go through our whole presentation. If you have questions, go ahead and put those into the QA area. You'll see a little icon down at the bottom for QA. Go ahead and put your questions down there, and we will try and save a few minutes at the end to answer some live QA questions that you submit. So that's our little housekeeping. Let's dive right in. So the very first thing with AR is the customer. Everything revolves around the customer in AR. In our customer window, we have a customer type setting. There are two options in Counterpoint, either a cash customer or an AR customer. Those don't limit how you can pay, aside from AR customer has the ability to charge on AR. Either customer type can be used to tender to cash, credit card, check, any other tender that you support, gift cards, store credits, all those kind of things. But an AR customer also has the ability to charge to AR. When you select AR as the customer type, down in the bottom right, we several fields display the credit limit, the terms code, finance charge code, and AR account. We won't dive into how to set these up and configure those today. But if you need more training on that, you can reach out to our education team and get some training scheduled to dive into the terms code and the finance charge code setup and all that fun stuff. On the AR info tab, one of the important things is once a customer has been turned into an AR customer or set up initially as an AR customer type, if there are any AR documents ever on that account, it cannot be converted back to a cash customer. That's sometimes the logical thing is, okay, I don't want them to charge anymore, so I need to change them to a cash type. Instead, what we have on this AR info tab is a little checkbox to allow AR charges. And so if you wish to restrict a customer to not be able to charge on AR any longer, you can simply uncheck that box and save the customer record. Yeah, we'll leave that checked for this webinar so we can use this customer. So this customer we have selected, Greg Rapid. We will be using that for the entire duration of our webinar presentation, so you'll become very familiar with him. The credit limit option, for the majority of our clients, they will leave that unlimited. But we do have a subset of clients who wish to specify customer by customer what their actual credit limit is. And you can think of that like a credit card that you carry in your wallet. They set a credit limit for you, and you can only spend up to that amount. And then as you pay down, that relieves some of your available credit, and you can spend more. And that functions just that way. The one additional thing is this little checkbox up here to send statements as email. And so when you're doing AR, obviously you want to send statements to your customers on a frequent schedule, usually monthly. And we support the ability to either print those statements out and stuff envelopes and send them in the mail, or you can also send them via email. And the email setup piece, if you're not currently using email for emailing receipts or emailing statements, again, that's something you can reach out to us and get some assistance on setting up all those email configuration options. The one other thing to touch on with the customer type, mentioning the difference between cash and AR, Counterpoint also has a utility for merging customers. The merge will not work on customers that are of different type. And there are some details in behind that, but for this webinar, we will just mention that if you've got John Smith as a cash customer and John Smith as an AR, you'll run into some issues if you try and merge them and make it a single account. Okay, so that's the quick skinny on the customer setup screen. So let's bounce over to customer control. And this customer control window is where we control some of the company-wide settings related to AR. And our very first tab here is related to aging and how we want our customers to flow through aging. The majority of our customers have what we have set up here, where their aging you've got a current and then a 30 to 60, 60 to 90, and a 90 plus. You can have more periods or fewer periods if you wish. And additionally, we have dunning statements specified here that print on the customer statement based on where that customer is in their aging bucket. So if they're current, no special message will display. But as they become more and more past due, the message usually becomes a little more stringent, more exclamation marks to inspire action from the customer to pay their account up. On the AR processing tab, we have a few options here concerning write-off. The majority of time when the person executing the write-off controls the whole AR setup for the company. And so setting a maximum write-off is typically not required. But if you do have a more complex environment where multiple people are handling AR, you might wish to set a maximum write-off amount to ensure that somebody's not going rogue and giving a customer too much credit. Bouncing down to statements, we have the option here to save copies to disk. And what this does is when you run statements, it'll save a copy into the Counterpoint directory structure on the server. And that makes those statements readily available to repull and bring those back up. So you have a contemporaneous record of what that statement looked like the time it was ran. And then our little checkbox to allow emailing of statements or not. Again, we have the email subject and the email body that you can specify here. And if you need help setting up those email options, reach out to us, and we will assist you with that.
All right. Now that we've talked about how to set up your customers, how to set up those accounts in AR, we're going to move along to our touch screen. So this is our touch screen, and we are going to have this customer purchase something on their AR account. Now, in order to do that, we have to actually select the customer and put them on the ticket. So I'm going to choose the Greg Rapid customer here. And there it is. And so now that we have the Greg Rapid customer on the ticket, we can, they'll be the customer of record for the transaction. Now, what I also wanted to point out, when you put the customer on the ticket, there's, besides the lookup where you put the customer on the ticket, there's this little Z here. And the Z, we have it set to show things like the current balance of the customer, the current unposted balance of that customer. So there are traditionally things you can see in quick manner by setting them up in your Zoom view. Okay, so now we have the customer on the ticket, and let's go buy some things. Right, so this customer is going to buy, let's say, 118-10007. They're going to buy a red bulb. All right, and they like that so much, they're actually going to buy another one. Let's do 118-10008. They're going to buy an orange bulb as well. So now they have two items for sale that they've put on their ticket. They're purchasing these things, and we are going to pay this out. So I'm going to hit pay. Now, traditionally, we could use MasterCard or, points, loyalty points, or store credits that they have, or checks, anything you want to pay. But in this case, we're actually going to charge this purchase to AR. And again, this is not available to you unless that AR customer is on the ticket. So we're choosing to AR. And now the total for this ticket is going to go to AR. And there you have it. That purchase has now been made, tendered to AR. So here's what they purchased up here. And down here it shows the tender was to AR. Okay, so instead of paying any other form of tender, they just put it on their account. And that's how that works. That's how AR works. With AR, returns can also be associated with AR. So typically when you have a document and the customer has a receipt in hand, you scan that receipt and in this box, and then it'll pull right up. In our case, we're doing a demo, so we don't have the receipt in front of us. So we're going to look it up, and we're actually going to choose the customer for that lookup. There's my customer. This shows all the transactions for that customer. And in fact, we can see the one right here that we just did. So we'll choose that ticket, shows the items they bought, and they're going to return the red bulb. So we're going to click that. That will add the return item to the ticket. Now, to get this to credit off of their AR, when we tender it, instead of paying them back cash or whatever, we tender it back to the way that they purchased it. Charge to AR. So now it's a -107 for the one that they purchased, meaning item plus tax. So now that's a credit on their AR for that return. So now the charge that was originally put against their account is credited by the amount of that return. All right, and what else we got here? Oh yeah, so now that we've made some purchases, you will have an opportunity to pay down that account, meaning the customer wants to pay off some or all of their account based on the statements that you've sent them. Now, traditionally, the best way to do this is in your back office, you'd have a staff who would be in charge of collecting payments against accounts, and they would open their touch screen in the back, and they'd go right into the tender screen. But instead of choosing charge to AR, they're going to choose the button here that says pay on account. Now, we didn't put anybody on this ticket because we're not selling anybody anything. But when we go to the tender screen and choose pay on account, first thing it asks us for right out of the gate is whose customer account are you paying down? So I'm going to choose my customer to say, yes, this is the account we're paying down. It will show me the customer balance. And traditionally, there's 4 different ways to add a credit or a pay down on this account. The best way to do this is to choose automatic. Now, if you choose automatic, all you have to do is tell it how you're going to pay and what the amount is going to be. For example, you could say the customer sent me a check, and that check was for $500. So this pay down amount of $500 on this check is going to go against this balance. And what it does is, if you choose automatic, it looks at the oldest invoice in the system, the oldest transaction, and it pays off towards that pay amount towards that, and then it goes to the next oldest and the next oldest, and then it pays off things that are sitting out there that have been out there a long time. For example, if you had an even larger payment here of $5,000, it would say find, $200 out the very oldest thing, and then it would find another $400 on the next oldest thing, and so on and so forth, until it ran through all that $5,000. Another choice to make is specifying. Now, this specifying a document is you, the person who's doing the payment on account, specifying which document this goes against. So we have a document here, and I could say, pay this $5,000 towards the balance on this particular document. I could also say, rather than a specific single document, I could say, they have multiple documents, and I want you to use this $5,000 payment against these three. And I could say, put pay the full balance on this, or I could actually say, pay 200 on this, pay 100 on this, and put the balance on this without anything there. So, and it would basically do the math for you and pick out what you're going to pay. Remaining amount to be applied here, so I could say 3,000 goes on, 300 goes on this, and apply open to access, or if I could increase that. So you have multiple things you can do here if you're working with multiple invoices. So we talked about automatic, which does it for you. We talked about specified. We talked about multiple. There's an option to set it to open. Now, open will simply apply an open credit on the amount for the amount that's there being used in the paydown. For a reference, you can say, for example, project manager paid this, paid down. So you could make a reference if you wanted to. It's not a requirement, but you could do that. And then in our case, we're just going to say this is a cash payment and it's $5,000 against their account and it's open. So we'll do that. And now they have, and you can see a receipt for that if you want. You can see that they paid that. But in this case, there's now a transaction in there with an open credit. It wasn't put against anything, but it's sitting in there waiting to happen.
And just to talk about those four options in one different light is how you're accepting customer payments. Traditionally, you'll have one person who's designated as the person who processes all the checks that come in, and so they would go through here and do their pay on account, and they would know which invoices they're paying down. Or your company policy might be, we just apply automatic, and it applies to all the oldest open documents first and moves forward until the payment is fully applied. If you have cashiers taking payments at the register, generally you don't want them doing the specific or the multiple and trying to figure out what to apply against. You want them to take that payment and either select automatic or select open. And that would be a company policy decision based on how you want to operate. Automatic, we talked about, right? Open would be, I'm taking that $500 payment and I want it to just be on the account. And then I'm going to hand it over to Jackie, my bookkeeper in the back, who handles my AR payments. And she can look at the customer account for Greg and say, okay, this $500 payment, it's going to be against my invoice from July 1st for $200 and my invoice from July 10th for $300. And she can do the application there and pay down those invoices themselves.
Last on that topic on that point, that is, so in the back room, you can take checks in this matter, you can take cash. What you can't do in the back room is take credit card payments against an account unless you have a credit card reader attached to the back office station. If you do not, then in order to take a credit card payment against an account, you'd have to do it through the register or another station with a card reader attached to it. All right. And in fact, if you want to take credit card payments in the back room and you don't have a card reader, talk to us and we'll see about getting a card reader attached to the back office station. All right, so from here, we're going to talk about there you go. We're going to talk about account management. Now, this is the account management screen. The customer screen that we talked about before was where we set up the customer, and the account management screen specifically is where you can handle all the things related to the account management, the AR management of that customer. On the account management screen, you'll see things like the balance, the current balance of that customer. You'll also see the unposted balance. And if you want to see detail of unposted balance, there's a tab for that. Right here, I click the tab, and everything that has not been posted yet, meaning drawer sales, etc., will show in your own unposted documents. Credit available is here. If you've set a credit limit, it'll show you based on what they've purchased and what's in their system now, it'll show you the remaining balance of the credit available. So this tab, unposted documents, shows in fact those documents not posted yet. And this tab, the AR documents, shows the posted in your system live documents, both tickets and payments and finance charges.
So the AR, excuse me, the AR documents tab is where you'll spend a lot of your time when you're dealing with customer accounts. It gives us two ways to see the activity, and it brings us to the concept of what Counterpoint calls a document that's self-applied, or a document that is used to pay down something that's self-applied. And so the self-applied transactions are going to be your invoices, your tickets, or your debit memos. And those are basically, those say, I'm something that's increasing the customer balance, and so I'm applied to myself. And then later, I'm going to expect a credit memo or a payment to come pay me down. Actually, finance charges would fall into the self-applied bucket as well, where credit memos or payments would pay those off later. And so as we look at the apply to, this is looking at all of these self-applied documents, and then they have a little tree expander to see everything that's been used to pay against them so far. And so let's jump to group by. No, stay there for 1 second. So this one you highlighted, Greg, perfect. So if the customer calls in and says, hey, I submitted a payment, and I think you applied it against the wrong thing, or it's not applied against what I think it should be applied to. So they say, I made a payment in April. And let's go over to group by document, Greg, so we can show it there. There we go. So they'll come in and they'll say, I made a payment in April for $435, and that was supposed to pay off invoice number 10014 and 10017. And so we can look here and see, okay, instead of 10017, it's actually paying off 10015. And so we can take that $393, and we want to change that from being applied against document 15, and we want it to go against document 17. And so if we select that payment itself, then we can hit reapply AR document. And this will say, it's already applied against something. Do you want to keep that, or do you want to start fresh? And since this is applied to multiple things, we'll say we want to keep it, but we just want to update 1 or 2 lines on it. So we bounce into this document, we go to the lines tab, and now we can use the lookup and say, okay, let me find document 17. We want to apply the same $393. We're just shifting that payment from document 15 to document 17. And as we tab through, it'll ask us are you ready to save? Have you done everything you want to do? We'll say yes. And now if we go pull that payment from April 13 again, if we expand that guy, now he's going to show us that we are in fact applied against document 14 and document 17. And if we go back to our group by apply to, and we expand number 15, we'll see that that $393 is no longer showing there. And if we expand 17, now we see the 393 showing here. And so the reapply is our way to say, my payment has been applied to something, whether that's one or more documents or applied to open, or even a combination of that. So if a payment could be applied to partially against two documents and then have a balance applied to open, our reapply is where we would go through and do the payment there. Scroll up to the top if you would, Greg. Okay, so let's go back to group by document and scroll down to the bottom if you would, please. Let's take the payment from 8/12 and let's reapply and change him to open real quick. So on lines, I'll select that guy and tick the box for open. And let's go ahead and save and close that. Okay, so under group by apply to again. So to illustrate our open concept, where we have a payment that is not yet applied to something, on a group by apply to at the very top, we'll see we have an open document. And this would list out one or more documents that are applied to open and can be reapplied to something else to pay down something else. And we have a few ways to do that. Either we can select it and go into the reapply AR documents, or we have a utility to apply open credits. And the apply open credits will mimic taking the payment and choosing the automatic option when you're doing a pay on account. So it'll look at this $725 and it'll say, let me find my oldest document that has a balance and apply as much as I can against it. And if the balance on that document becomes 0, let me look for the next oldest document with a balance and apply against it. And so the apply to open exactly behaves the same way as taking an automatic payment from the start. And so let's use our apply open credits, because we want to apply this guy. And let's go ahead and preview. And what this shows us is, okay, we have this payment for $725, and what it's going to look to apply to is document 15 that we had been working with previously, and it would put all $725 against it, and that document would still have a balance of $1,232. And so if document 15 had a smaller balance, then we would see another line item here for document 17 or others that still had balances. So we'll go ahead and close this, and let's do the apply. And again, it gives us a preview of this, and once we close this, it'll go ahead and execute that application, and we can close this. And now if we refresh the customer account, we'll see that the apply to open doesn't show any longer in the top of this frame. And if we go look at document 15, if we expand that guy, now we'll see that $725 payment showing there. And so that's a quick way, and this apply to open credits would run for all customers. You could certainly filter it down, but the majority of the time, if you're looking to apply open credits and you have a lot of them, running it for all customers and letting it do its magic is the best way to go there. And it saves you a lot of time with having to jump into reapply and select which documents to pay down and work through yourself which way to do that. Let's bounce to the AR info tab real quick. And Greg, I'll let you take it away on aging.
All right. The aging is what we want to do to find out what transactions have taken place in the aging period that we want to look at. Traditionally, you're going to age your customers right before you send your statements, and you send your statements in 1 month for the transactions that happened in the previous month. Okay. Now, if you go into account management and you look up your specific customer, there's a button down here to age customer. That will age this customer and nobody else. Okay, so if I were to age the customer right now, I could see a new date of the last date aged, and I could see the new buckets with their current amounts in them. Again, this shows last transactional stuff that has been done with the account, but this on the left side shows the actual aging that we just performed. But what we're going to do now is show you where everybody gets aged. So there is a customer aging. It is a report in our customers, and it allows you to run aging for more than just one customer. You could filter it down and just filter down to single customers here, but traditionally this aging report is used to do everybody at once. And we have set the age of as of, and we have set that to end of last month so that it will always age up to the last day of the previous month. You can set that for other dates and ways to do this, but right now it's going to age for the previous month. So I'm going to preview this and take a look at the aging here.
And the end of last month selection there is keeping in line with the next few screens that we'll show with finance charges and statements, where we're really looking to capture the last month period. In a minute, we'll also touch on how to run the aging to see who are my past due customers, because that can be very useful to single out just those customers who are 30 days past due or more, so that you can make collection calls or send emails to inspire payment.
Thank you. And this report here shows the documents, the document numbers, the document types, payments or tickets, and it shows the date of those documents. If they were payments, it shows what tickets they were paying down, and it shows the amounts. Negative amounts are the payments, positive ones are the charges, and then the number of days that they've been hanging around, so the aging days. That's what this report will show, but this is based on records as of the last aging we did. So this is through 7/31. If we wanted to get more up to date, we could simply change that aging as of today. So we could change the date to as of today. And this is particularly useful if you're going to run things like what Matt mentioned, the past due customers. I'm going to age as of today. There's no other things in here going on. I'm just going to preview that. And so this is the aging as of today. Now, I have actually set a parameter in here. I have loaded and saved a parameter, a preset, if you will, to do my past due customers report. So I'm going to go into options. I'm going to go into load parameters. I'm going to find that report. Here it is, and I'm going to load that. And
just to be super clear, when you want to get your past due customers, it really is a two-step process. Go ahead and bounce over to the customer filter tab, Greg.
Yeah.
So with this past due customer parameters that got loaded, what this saying is for these aging buckets that are not my current bucket, for anything 30 days and older, if I have something more than 0, that customer is past due. We can't just come in and run this statement because these aging buckets are static on the customer as of the last time aging was run. And so that's why right before this, Greg ran the aging to say, I want to update my aging buckets on all of my customers, regardless of their balance or what their aging was previously. I just want to get everybody aged as of today. And now I want to load these parameters in and see, okay, based on today's aging, now who's past due.
Thank you. And so we're going to run that report. We're going to preview that. And it shows all my customers with past due balances. And in this case, here's my customer with the past due balances. And you can see the buckets here at the top of the report. So their balance is 8632.43. They have nothing open, but look, they have current stuff here. They have stuff in the first bucket here. They have this bucket. This bucket's okay, but then there's this really way long over 90 days bucket, which has stuff in it. So that's how, go ahead.
Yep, this also highlights that anything that's currently applied to open and not touching an old ticket isn't really in an aging bucket. It's kind of set aside waiting to be applied. And so if you had a sufficient amount in your open balance, you could go wipe out some of your older activity and bring your aging a little more current.
Right. Okay, so we have that. And now you'll notice in a previous screen that we looked at, we saw a charge for finance charges. If you are doing finance charges with your customer, you can do, you can run a report that actually calculates finance charges based on the balances. So we run the report, we say, ooh, what is that? Okay. All right, so we, yeah, it's not gonna let us do this, but
Little technical difficulty. We didn't have that in our run-through, so I'm not sure what what
right,
happened in our environment here.
but
But the long and short of calculating finance charges, the majority of our clients do not charge their AR customers finance charges. We have a very small subset that do, and you know the finance charge setup is usually something like 18% annually, and that gets broken down to 1.5% per month. And so based on the documents that are aged out, then then the finance charge is calculated on that past due amount at 1.5%, and it gets put on as a finance charge. In the account management screen, Greg?
I think I was going to here, let's see.
There we go.
Management, I think it's that one. There you go.
So under AR documents, you'll see a finance charge we ran earlier today. We backdated it to 8/1, and for the customer's balance, the 1.5% equated to $135 finance charge that we got loaded onto the account. And so after we get through finance charges, we'll go ahead and take a look at statements. And so statements, the vast majority of our clients are going to run this with statement type document date up top. We do have a couple other options that are both related to running it by the apply to. And all that nomenclature ties back to what you see on the account management screen with group by document or group by apply to. Okay, and so the majority of our clients run it by document date because that's what makes most sense to their customers. In the date dropdown, we generally leave this set to last month because you're going to run your statements always for the last month. You'll be past month end. So for July, you're going to run those on August 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and get those sent out. And then we have a couple checkboxes here for whether to print ticket detail or show application detail on the statement. The ticket detail underneath each ticket or invoice that shows up on the statement, it'll show the item level details. It'll show the item number, description, the quantity, and the price to justify what that ticket was. And then the application detail really mirrors our apply to for all of those payments. And so the payment will show what it's applied to. The checkbox on the right to include email customers in print preview. Generally, for your email customers, you're not going to want to email the statement and print it. You're going to want to do one or the other. And so typically you want to leave that box unchecked, and you would preview. Let's do that. And so a preview will show us.
Jeez.
The preview would show us all of the statements that um, sorry, a little technical difficulty on that one. It would show us all the statements with the activity for customers who did not need to email. Greg, do you want to talk for a sec?
Yeah. All right. So the statement is going to show just like the aging. The statement is the sort of like sister document to the aging. The aging is an internal document for you to look at and review the customer stuff. The statement is what actually goes out to the customer. If you run this report now, it's going to run just the customers who you're printing a statement for, and it's going to exclude the customers that you have in their customer record. Send the statement for this customer through email. So if there's a checkbox on the customer record that says send statements via email, you will not get a printed copy of that when you print or preview these statements, because the inference is that you're going to use this email to email those statements to the customers. If you want to see them first, then you click this box to include them in your print or preview, so that you'll see both the ones that you're going to email out and the ones that you're going to send through the mail. The caveat of using this one is because it's printing everything, you've got to ferret out, you've got to take out the ones that you're going to email so that they don't get two versions of the same thing.
Greg, go ahead and close the statements window, and let's relaunch it.
Okay.
I had a quick call to tech support.
All right. Reports, statements.
And so let's just preview straight away. We've got all of our settings the way we want them.
Perfect. All right.
Great. Okay, so here's our customer Greg Rapid. Let's maximize that all the way. And so what we can see is on this, we had both of those checkboxes marked to show the ticket detail. And so we see on both the tickets that we rang on 7/12 that we're showing the items, the item numbers, description, the quantity sold, and the price for each of those. The one thing that will not show, if a customer tries to add down there, they might come up a little bit different, and that's because the tax doesn't show up on this ticket detail, and that is likely the discrepancy. Or if you had any miscellaneous charges that you were charging, those wouldn't show on the ticket detail here. And then looking at the two payments that we accepted in July for this customer, the first one shows it was paid against a single invoice for $200. And then we had another payment that was used to pay against 4 different invoices, and we list out all the details of those. And so that these scenarios are what your customers would see. And if we scroll down to the bottom, what we'll see is a sum of the current transactions for the month for a minus 159. Our new balance on the account as of this statement end date is 9,222. We know that our current balance is in the 8,000 range because we've taken payments. And actually at the very bottom here, it says, okay, you've had minus 590 of additional activity after your statement end date, just as a reference. Typically, we're not going to see much in there because statements are run pretty close to the end of the month. You want to get those out to your customers and get them to pay you quickly. If your month end was on a Friday and you're not going to run statements until Monday or Tuesday, it's possible that a customer came in over the weekend and either charged something or made a payment. And so that the transaction amount past the statement end date would show a positive or negative based on that activity. We show the current aging here to the customer, so they know that, hey, shoot, I've got an amount over 90 days. I need to get on this. And then we have our dunning message. We can see there that because you're over 90 days, we have a whole lot of exclamation marks, and that's what gets pulled in from the customer control window that we looked at previously. Like we said, this is the document date format, and probably 90% or more of our clients will use their statements in that way. If we look at the apply to, and let's turn off the ticket detail, and let's look at the statement that way. Then this will show us for each ticket, for each activity we had in the period, it's going to line up to the ticket or the payment. And so the very first entry, the ticket wasn't in our period that we're taking a look at, but the payment was. And so this payment on 7/22 paid off that ticket that was originally rung on 5/12, and now that ticket has a running balance of 0. We've paid it off completely. And if we look down to document 10083, we can see that we had a ticket on 7/12 for $361. We took a payment on 7/22 for $138. And so that ticket still has a balance due of $222. And so based on your requirements, the way you run this statement will determine what you send to your customer, whether you run the apply to or the document date. Okay, and so regardless of which way you're doing it, if you are emailing customers, the print here would be to print out the statements that you're going to stuff envelopes and send via mail to your customers. And hitting the email button at the bottom is what would actually generate the email to send this as a PDF attachment with the email subject and email body that you had defined in the customer control setting. Okay. So the what's next, right? Many things in Counterpoint we have the ability to customize. There's not a lot about the AR process that can be customized. The one thing that we get most frequently is how do I customize my statement, or can you customize my statement for me? And that would include, can I put my logo, my company branding on it? Can I move some fields around? Can I change the font? Make things bold? How do I make this stand out and really say, hey, this is my company. This is a statement coming from my company versus a generic form letter that that would usually come out. One of the things that we mentioned on the ticket detail is that it doesn't show taxes and miscellaneous charges. That's something that if you're interested in the customization, we could give you a quote and look at customizing the statement to show that, but we don't currently have that as one of our out-of-the-box options. Okay, let's see. Do we have anything in the QA? Okay, it looks like we had one question about seeing taxes on statements, and we just talked about that. So that's good. Okay, and then can we have a report run by saving all invoices and using a total on the last page? If we're talking about the aging, then the aging would have summary totals already listed at the in the report footer, and so on the last page, it would at the very end of the report, it would show us those totals. Good. Another question came in that if an AR account should no longer be used, how do we mark that inactive? So if we'll go back to the customer screen on the AR info tab, it's this checkbox here to allow AR charges. If we unset that, then the customer would no longer be able to charge against AR. Okay, good. Got a few questions rolling in here. Good. Okay, so finance charges. So let's bounce back into finance charges, Greg. Hopefully the little tech support we put in that fixed statements will fix our finance charges as well. Let's see if we can get back into the finance charges calculation. There we go. So in finance charges here, again, this cutoff date kind of follows with what we're doing on the statement, right? We want to cut off as of the last day of last month, and let's just preview. There's not a lot of configuration once we want to calculate these, and so for this account, Greg Rapid, the amount past due as of our cutoff date is $9,000, and so 1.5% of that would be $135. And now let's go ahead and close this preview. And then if we hit create, this is how we would actually create them. We could change the document date, and this would be company preference. You could either do it as of the last date of that period, so that it would show up on the statement for that month, or you could set it as the first date of the next month, so it wouldn't show on the statement you send them for July, but it would show on the statement you send them for August. So typically that would get put on the last day of the month, so it does show on that statement that you did have a past due balance, and this is how much finance charge we're going to be collecting from you. And if we hit OK, then it would go ahead and create the finance charges. Yes, we want to create them. And no, we don't need to see that. But now, just like with many things in Counterpoint, these are unposted finance charges. And so if we wanted to change anything about them, say we ran finance charges for all of our customers, and we had 30 customers who were past due. And we know that Jill Johnson is a loyal customer, and she's usually not past due, but she was this month, and we want to go adjust her finance charge either down to 0, or we want to mark it down a little bit. Let's cancel that, Greg, if you would, and just scroll over with your arrows.
Oh, I see. Okay.
There we go. So if we scroll with our arrows, we can see all of our finance charges that were calculated, and we could adjust the amount. So instead of 135 for Greg, we know he's a loyal customer. We're going to knock this down to either 0 or $25 or some other amount that you think is fair. And you would save that. And then from the menu, you would post the entire batch of finance charges, and that's what actually puts them onto the account. Okay, thanks for that question. Okay, another question. If AR accounts have earned loyalty points, I assume those points have to be manually adjusted in their regular loyalty account. So that's an interesting question, where some companies straddle the line here and make a decision that if I'm doing AR, I don't want those customers to participate in loyalty, but sometimes I do. And so if you are earning loyalty points while using AR, then those loyalty points get accumulated and redeemed just as a normal cash customer. There's no difference to loyalty between AR and cash. Okay, and then the past due report. So we'll talk briefly to that again as we're getting close to our time. So the past due report is our aging report, and just using it as a two-step process. First is to run the aging with no filters, so that all of the aging buckets on all of the customers will get updated as of the date you're running it. So let's set that to today. There we go. And we'd want to run. Let's run the aging. So preview, and it'll go through and calculate everybody real quick. And now all of my buckets are updated for today. And now I want to close that out, and we can load our parameters for past due customers. And if this option isn't in your saved parameters, let's bounce over, Greg, to the customer tab so we can show everybody what's on there. And so what we have set for the parameters here on the filters is that our last aging balance 2 is more than 0, and our last aging balance 3 is more than, or 3 is more than 0, or bucket 4 is more than 0, or bucket 5 is more than 0. And so these buckets are numbered this way to account for your ability to change your aging periods. So in this case, our aging bucket 2 is our 30 to 60 day, aging bucket 3 is our 60 to 90, and aging bucket 4 is our 90 plus. If we had specified, a 90 to 120 and a 120 plus, then that's where bucket 5 would come in here. But if any of those are greater than 0, then we know we have something that's past due. And if we preview, it's going to show us that we know Greg is past due, and he's the only one that's past due. And so for each customer, we would see their balance as of today, and then how much of that balance was sprinkled among the various aging buckets. It'll show us the details of what's outstanding and its age. Then if we scroll down in the report footer, we'll be able to see, okay, for all of our customers, the total balance is X, and then here's how much is spread among all of the buckets for all of these past due customers. So that's our two-step process. Run the aging once with no filters, and then run the aging again with the filter just where we have anything in those aging buckets past bucket 1. Okay, and then just one last quick note, a question of what's the difference between a layaway and AR, and potentially how those interact with each other. And so generally on a layaway, you're going to require deposit payments either on a schedule or an upfront and then a final when the customer is ready to pick up their merchandise. When you're doing layaway, it's usually not ideal, and it's usually not a process to tender that deposit to AR. When you're doing a layaway, the concept is you want to get that payment from the customer as you're going, and make sure you're fully paid before releasing those goods. And so tendering to AR is, taking that money out of one pocket and putting it in the other pocket, and waiting for the customer still to pay you. So layaway and AR usually are split. And an AR is you have a more trust relationship with the customer that you know they're going to pay, and layaway is something that has to potentially hang out for a little while as they're making installment payments to fully fund the purchase of the goods. Okay. And one last question it looks like we have time for. We have different pricing per store. In the past, we have edited and it changed all the store pricing. Is there a way to detail pricing per store? That's a good question. That's a little bit off topic for this. The pricing is really an item setup, and yeah, I'd recommend if you would, please submit that question to our education team, and we'll work with you on a direct answer to make sure we're answering your question precisely. Okay, thank you all for your time. If you have any questions, please do reach out to us. You can email us at rapidcares@rapidpos.com with any questions or follow-ups. We will be sending a recording of this presentation so that you have it handy and you can view it as frequently as you wish. Thank you all for your time today. Have a good day.
Yes, thank you.